What's going on, everybody? Thanks for tuning back in. Today we're going to be taking a look at how to use Firebase version 9 with React to get some basic Firebase authentication going. I previously did a tutorial about an hour long on Firebase 8 authentication with React. I went pretty in depth with that. So this video serves as a follow-up to that on how to use Firebase 9. There are some subtle differences and some big changes. Mainly that Firebase 9 is now very modular. You don't have to import the whole thing at once. You can just import what you need. And it takes advantage of some of React's new hook functionality. This tutorial will serve as a fresh reminder on how to get started in a Firebase project and how to use Firebase 9 with a basic Google login. There won't be anything fancy here, just a Google login and a protected route. That being said, we're going to get into it. And remember, if you like what you see, smash the like button, subscribe if you haven't, and a big shout out to Carl for buying me my first coffee. All right, guys, let's get into it. So if you haven't done this step already, you have to create a new project in the Firebase console. If you have done this, you can go ahead and skip this step. But if you haven't done this before, just follow along with me here. It's pretty simple. When you add a project, Firebase is going to prompt you for a project name. Enter whatever you would like here. On the next step, it's going to ask you if you want analytics enabled by Google on your project. You can select yes or no. This doesn't matter, as you can always enable it later. Then it's going to create your project for you, and you just have to wait a little bit for it to set up. Once it's set up, you can go inside of your project. You're going to want to click this little button here to create a new web app. Register the app by giving it a name. And then once you do that, it's going to tell you to add the Firebase SDK. What we're most interested in here is this Firebase configuration object. I'm going to go ahead and just copy and paste the object part of this, as I want to put this into my project. After you've done this, go to the authentication section inside of your build and get started with the authentication, and then add any providers you want. I'm just going to show you how to do a Google provider here, but you can go ahead and select any of these that you want to make work. I'm going to enable it and select the project support email, which is just the email I signed up with Firebase. Once the Google authentication is enabled, we can go to our project. For this tutorial, I've set up a basic project that's using React Router 6. If you don't know how to use that, I have a tutorial on that already that I'll list below. But that being said, this is just a basic project with 2 pages, a home page with the path of just / or just no path in the URL, and a login path, which will be my login page. I want to protect my home page with an auth route, and I want to use the login page to log me into Firebase. And the Firebase SDK will provide us the tools we need to create an authorized route. And if the user isn't authorized, we can boot them out of that route. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new file for the config that we just copied from the Firebase console. I'm going to put this in a folder called config and a file called config.ts. Inside of the file, I'm going to export const config, and I'm going to make this equal to an object. Inside of it, I'm going to have a key that says Firebase config. And that's going to be an object, and it's going to hold my 6 keys here that I copied. I'm going to fix the spacing and save this. And now I have the configuration I need to connect to Firebase. So our next step is going to be to install Firebase with an npm install Firebase. We don't have to install any dev dependency types, as Firebase includes them for us already. In order to instantiate Firebase into your application or to initialize it, I'm just going to go to my application.tsx, as this is the entry point for my application, and this page will always be rendered. So I'm going to initialize my Firebase app here. Before I declare my interface, I'm going to import initialize app from Firebase/app. And right above the interface, I'm going to call that initialize app function, and I'm going to pass in my config.firebaseconfig. This is all you need to start the app, and this will only be called once, as you only hit the application file once. Now you could do something, for example, where you export const an object that is equal to this app. You don't have to do this, but if you perhaps want to use this Firebase object somewhere else, this is how you would export it, and you can import it likewise. I'm just going to leave it as initialize app because I only need to call it once. Next, I'm going to create a components folder, and I'm going to make my auth route component. Go ahead and create your authroute.tsx. I have a code snippet here called fc that I created that will automatically create a function component for me, so I don't have to type it out. You don't have to have this installed or enabled, but this makes life much easier, so I highly recommend you do this. If you don't know how to create a Visual Studio Code snippet, you can probably download one in the extensions area, or I have a video that tells you how to create them. At the top of my auth route, inside of my function, I'm going to call a const, and I'm going to make my children inside of my object equal to props because I want the children object for my props. I'm going to make a const auth is equal to get auth, and I'm going to automatically import this from Firebase. It might not work the first time because of the way we import it, so I'm just going to have to import it at the top here. So I'm going to import, and then if I type get auth from Firebase/auth, next, I'm going to create a const navigate, and this is going to use a React Router 6 function called use navigate. This is what's going to help me switch pages if I'm not authorized. Lastly, I'm going to create a state variable called loading with its setter function, and it's going to be initially equal to false. Next, let's go ahead and create a use effect that will be called anytime our auth variable is changed. But before we do that, I'm going to create a function that's actually going to tell us if our auth state has changed. So create a const auth check and make this equal to something called onAuth state changed. This is provided to us by Firebase. This is actually a function that acts like a subscription. So we're going to subscribe to it inside of our use effect. And then I'll show you how to make that work properly to not have any memory leaks inside of your application. Pass in your auth to onAuth state changed. And also create a callback with a user variable. Before we fill out this function, go back to the use effect, put the auth variable inside of your dependency array, and call the function auth check on the inside. So now we're subscribed to any changes in our auth function. Back inside of the auth check function, what we're going to do is we're going to check to see if the user exists. If the user exists, there's nothing to do here. So we're just going to set the loading equal to false if we're already loading. However, if the user doesn't exist, what we want to do is maybe console log something saying unauthorized or you can't access this page. And then we want to navigate to our login page using navigate and passing in the /login as we declared it in our application. Next, if we're loading, just return a paragraph that says loading. And inside of the last return, change this to just a React fragment and pass in the children in the middle. So if we get to this point, just render whatever page is supposed to be rendered. This is all we need for our auth route. So let's take it and insert it into our route for our home page and protect the home page with this auth route. How we're going to do that is where we have our element homepage, we're going to actually put that inside of an auth route that we're going to import automatically here. And just like that, this homepage should be protected now. So how we're going to test this is I'm going to run an npm start and we're going to give it a shot. So when I go to localhost 3000, what should happen is because I'm not allowed to access the home page, it should load really fast and then boot me to the login page. So let's see if it does that. And just like that, we get booted to the login page. So now let's go back to our project and create our login page functionality. At the top, I'm going to import my get auth from Firebase/auth, and then I'm going to add my Google Auth provider and my sign in with pop-up. Inside of my login page, similarly to the other page, I'm going to get my const auth by using get auth and get a navigate function by using the use navigate hook. I'm going to create a state variable called authing, and I'm going to use state set this to false. Next, I'm going to create my sign in function to sign in with Google. So how we're going to do this is we are going to create a new function, and it's going to be async, and we're going to call it sign in with Google. It's not going to take any props, and on the inside of it, we're going to call our sign in with pop-up. But before we do that, we'll set authing to true. And when you call the sign in with pop-up, like we did in the other file with the onAuth state change, we're going to pass in our auth. And here we're going to pass in our Google Auth provider. We're going to add a then block with a response. Inside that response, let's console log the response.user.uid as this should exist because we are now logged in. And then navigate them to the home page to show that we've logged in. Add a catch block with an error prop. Inside of this, you can console log the error, just in case there is one, and then you can set the authing to false. Inside of our return, underneath our login page text, create a new button. Make the onClick function call the sign in with pop-up, and set the button disabled if we are authing. Inside of the button, I'm just going to say something like sign in with Google. So let's go back to our login page and test to see if this works. Go ahead and click the sign in with Google button. You should get a pop-up that looks something like this. I'm going to go ahead and click this. And then you can see that it sends me to the home page. And it says, yay, we're protected by Firebase. Cool. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a sign out button to this home page and see if it brings me back to the login page because I'm no longer in a protected route. That being said, you're going to notice that error sign inside of the console saying that there might be a memory leak. This is what I was referring to earlier in the use effect with our auth check, by paying close attention that the on auth state change is actually a subscription. So I'm going to show you how to make all of this work properly, but bear with me here. First, let's go back to the home page, and what we're going to do is we are going to import our get auth from Firebase auth and sign out. That is actually a function. We are going to get our auth object as we have done in the other files. And then underneath our home page, what we're going to do is we're going to add a button that says sign out. And the on click for this button is going to simply call the sign out function. And we're going to pass in our auth object to it. Nice and simple. We don't have to use our navigation here because our auth route should automatically boot us back to the login page. So let's go back to the website and test this. And you'll notice that when I click sign out, it says that I'm unauthorized, but I'm not getting kicked out. And that's because we have to fix our subscription. So let's go to our auth route and take a look at how to fix this. Inside of our use effect, in order to handle this subscription properly, we have to return. And what we do is return a function that points at our auth check function. This will clean up any memory leaks and will clean up the subscription for us and allow this subscription to work properly. So let's save it and go back to the website. I'm going to click sign in with Google. It's going to log me in automatically. I'm going to click sign out, and you see it boots me instantly back to the login page, and it doesn't give me any more warnings that there's a memory leak inside of my application. Nice and simple. Okay guys, that's all we have to do to use Firebase to not only sign us in with social media, you can use it to sign in with your email and password like we did in the previous tutorial, or you can use Facebook, Twitter, etc. It doesn't matter what you use. This app is now protected by Firebase, and anywhere you use that auth route, you have to be logged in. If you did the tutorial previously on Firebase 8, I hope you can see how to adjust it for Firebase 9. And if you have any questions or comments or concerns, just please go ahead and post them, and I'll do my best to answer them. Thanks so much for tuning back in, guys. I really appreciate it. If you like this video, please hit the like button, give me a subscription, or buy me a coffee like Carl did so I can continue to bring you more videos. All right, guys, see you in the next one.